All right, we are live. It is November 8th, 2023, State of the Network. And we got a couple things going on today. So, the good folks over at Helium are mostly out and focused in Barcelona at the, what is it, the FIRA? No, I think it's not FIRA, it's something else. But the IoT stuff going on in Barcelona, same place I was last year for the Helium in the Wild tour. Seeing all kinds of cool stuff. Looks like there's some cool quotes coming down the pipe. No other technology like the Helium network can match this capability, says Jose Hernandez, the IoT tech lead at Tamal Redis. Yeah, super cool stuff going on. So, been some updates to the wallet. I haven't checked mine lately. I'm sure that I generally have a lot of faith and trust that the thing is going to work out just fine. Um, let's see. If you're in Europe, or if you're in Europe, because it's such a small place. If you're in Barcelona, cruise by and check out what's going on at the Smart City Expo. That's what it was. I see that Miro from Heliotics is there. Looks like their booth A55 is what Helium is. So kind of cool to see what's going on there. Let's see. The other piece that we've got. So WeatherXM came out. I think we came out last week with the update on the 4G weather station that's coming down the pipe. That's going to be available in January, February, which would be super cool to see that come out. I think one of the questions that we've gotten, and I think we'll also see this come out in the white paper, which I think they're going to publish pretty soon, is the different hardware classes. So some interesting things around if you have different hardware costs, what that hardware should earn as far as tokens, right? If it's twice as much, should it earn twice as many tokens? In the case of the 4G weather station, at least for now, it looks like all the stations will earn the same. And we saw this play out pretty dramatically and pretty, let's say, a negative outcome for Pollen, where they had different costs for different things that earned you tokens, and there's this huge perverse incentive to map out coverage versus providing coverage, and that's one of the reasons that Pollen had a problem with selling the bumblebees versus selling with the super expensive radio. So interesting stuff going on there. I think the WeatherXM team, from my relationship with them over the past couple of weeks, they hired Gold Hawks to do some cool work for them. I think those guys are pretty sharp, and it's a really cool project. We'll see where it goes. They're all DePIN, so it's all pretty risky. You know, business is risky as it is, and that DePIN doesn't make it any less risky. It transfers some of that risk out. And it's a really cool way to see if a business proposition is going to work. So that's one cool thing. Let's see. The last week, I found this project, or I started paying way more attention to this project, Wingbits. Wingbits is similar to Helium in that you put up a radio. In this case, it's just a receiver. It's not a transmitter. You put up a transmitter that is ADS-B, which is automatic detection and surveillance B of aircraft. So most commercial aircraft have to have this. I think if you're flying over 10,000 feet or 18,000 feet, you've got to have one of these transmitters on your aircraft. And the aircraft can be tracked. They transmit out their GPS location, their altitude, their speed, other stuff as well. And an ADS-B receiving unit can pick that up. So you can put one of these receiving units on your house. You buy a specific area. They're calling it a Skyhex. The Skyhexes are Res 3, so pretty big, about 70 miles across. There's one Skyhex covers all of San Diego, pretty much county. And then you earn off of the Skyhexes that you buy. So it's been a really fun project to me because it kind of reminded me of Helium in the early days. And also was just a chance to take all the tools and equipment that I bought for Helium and use them again as far as making antennas and measuring stuff and seeing what's going on. So I expect over the next week I've already come out with 2 blog posts on Wingbits, kind of the rough guide piece, how to understand it, as well as a little bit more technical piece on how to start to look at the signals that you're doing and the coverage that you're bringing and all that stuff. But it's just been like a fun thing. I think, one of the hazards that they're going to run as a DePIN is they're really restricting the audience that can participate, right? There are, for each what they call Skyhex, so these hexes are, like I said, 70 miles across, something like that. You can only have 3 owners. So only 3 people can earn off of that massive area. So that means that basically, if you want to think about that, for every large city in the U.S., there can only be 3 people who earn and participate. So it limits the audience, right? If you look at San Diego as an example, I forget what we had at the peak, but it was, thousands of helium miners in San Diego. Versus with the Wingdit stuff, there's only ever going to be 3 that earn off of the San Diego Skyhack. So we may see that, really limit the growth. But on the tech side, super fun. I made this antenna out of a half of it's not a beer can because I'm not a beer drinker. I've got a problem with alcohol. But what is it? My wife and I call them fizzy waters. Spindrift. So you just cut a Spindrift can, you make it 68 or 69 millimeters high. You put a little piece of coax antenna sticking out the top of it. And then you've got a pretty nice antenna for this ADS-B stuff. It is 1090 megahertz. So just above where helium was. Helium was 915 here in the US. This is just a little bit above that. So just, kind of interesting stuff to mess around with. The other thing I saw was, I don't know if I put this in there, is this guy, I think his name's Steven, reached out to me about this proof of play. Let me see if I can copy this and put it down in the comments. This is another new-ish project, or new project that's coming out. No guarantee on that. Could be a total disaster, but kind of fun to see this stuff come down the pipe. I think you earn tokens for playing games. So not really my thing. I'm not much of an online video gamer. I know some of you are. But it's not my thing. So I said, hey, I'll check this out. But maybe someone in this group is the one that wants to do it. Let's see. Big picture, what I'm seeing that I think is pretty interesting is this kind of glimmering of the start of the bull market. Now, I got to be careful. I don't want to call like the start of the bull market run because, far smarter people who pay far more attention to the economy are watching this, and I'm not seeing them saying anything. I'm just seeing in the conversations that I'm having with DePIN founders and watching DePIN projects and seeing how they're launching and watching kind of DePIN Twitter or Twitter or DePIN X or whatever you want to call it, is that I'm just starting to see this shift in sentiment. We're certainly seeing a lot of kind of, I would consider frothy talk in the investment world about how DePINs are going to change everything. I think those of us that have been paying attention for a while have become not suspicious of that, but just really cautious of saying that a DePIN will change everything. The reason that you might run a DePIN is going to be that it is a business case that, if it was done, could change the world. But you run it as a DePIN to spread out the risk and remove basically the enormous capex that you need for a global coverage. So all the various DePINs kind of do this in one sense or another. But the big question that a DePIN has, that the reason that you'd use a DePIN is, will this business work, right? It's not like you're selling t-shirts on the corner and it will work, right? Other people have sold t-shirts on the corner. That's how, Bernard Arnault, the richest guy in the world, started, or maybe selling like pictures of a cat with a ball of twine on the corner. Like, that business works. You buy the print of the cat for $2, you sell it for $5. You can see your profit, like it's, where you're going to be, who your customers are. There's a pretty clear demand there. No matter how small or big the business is, the demand side of it is really well understood. And the demand side on DePIN it's a very interesting piece in that with DePIN projects, you both want and don't want, or like you want demand, but the reason that you go DePIN is you don't know if the demand is there. So you start out with this thing and you say, okay, if there was, we'll just take helium as the case because pretty much everyone in DePIN knows it and also knows more or less how it's gone so far. The question was the kind of, what did they say? The problem statement for helium was, and I'm sure I'm getting problem statement wrong. If we have a global LoRaWAN, is that valuable? Right? And you can substitute the rest of DePIN projects. If we have a global XYZ, dash cam, satellite navigation system, car information system, weather station system, noise monitoring system, people monitoring system, like all of these different projects, if you have that, is that valuable? And the thing that makes it different, I think, is we're not saying, like, if we go back to the LoRaWAN example, before helium came along, there was no global LoRaWAN, right? There was a pretty big network. There was TTN, I think was the biggest, or maybe is it Actility, but there was no like global network, so you didn't know if a giant network would be valuable. So that's the question that kind of DePINs have to ask and then try and answer as fast as they can. So the idea is that you have a pretty good idea that demand is there, and HiveMapper has done a great job of this so far. Although, like all of them, I mean, this is like the line that you walk as a business in DePIN is how transparent are you? Because sometimes being too transparent gives away a competitive advantage, right? If you tell everyone who your customers are, then someone is going to go take those customers, or at least go pursue those customers, and then they will not become your customers. So you got to be pretty careful about that. But you also want to be transparent with the community that you're serving and saying, look, we do have a paying customer, and that paying customer ends up driving value into the token. So what I'm seeing is that I think a lot of these investment companies and a lot of folks are understanding the potential value here. And if we look at venture capital in general, if we look at risk in general, especially with money with kind of an unlimited upside or a super high upside, is that you're looking at these things and saying, okay, what is the potential for a global LoRaWAN? It could be super valuable. Okay, that's worth putting some money in and funding it and seeing what happens, but it's not a guarantee that it's going to work. It's not a guarantee that any of these projects are going to work. So pretty interesting to see that the kind of conversation, at least the public conversation in this stuff, has turned from like, oh, this thing is all, it's dead, to, I wonder how we think about this. And I think I had recently put out over on the Gristle King channel, I think it was on Gristle King, I might have been on DePIN State, a piece saying like, look, I think what we're seeing is the end of chapter 1 of DePIN. So chapter 1 is over as far as DePIN. And I think we looked at and said, the real question was, can you grow the supply side of a global hardware project through a bunch of strangers? And I think the answer to that is yes. You can grow the supply side. We've seen it done successfully a bunch of times. So whether it's Helium, HiveMapper, Demo, down the line, WeatherXM, all of these things, we're seeing it happen probably with Wi-Fi Dabber right now. You can grow a supply side piece. We see there's been a lot of copycats too. And I think the copycats are probably not worth mentioning here. I don't want to give them any extra press, but like, look, here's the signal that I'm getting out of the copycats. So the people who are running another LoRaWAN network, another whatever network, and competing is like, okay, they saw that the idea was good enough. And on the business side, they were willing to commit at the very least time, if not also capital, so blood and treasure, to exploring that thing. So that is a good enough signal to say like, all right, that business could be good. It's not a guarantee. Doesn't mean it's going to be awesome, but it could be good. And then the next piece, so chapter 2 is going to be all about figuring out the first part of demand, right? So can you have a project that is run by basically normal people all over the world, people like me, people like you, and saying like, all right, I'm, able to Google things on the internet. I'm able to follow basic instructions. I'm able to make some creative jumps, but mostly able just to kind of work hard and follow instructions. And through that, I can build something that is part of a network that in aggregate is equal to or greater value, and certainly equal to or greater coverage than a network built by a single company. Okay, so that part has been proven. The supply side is out there. And even if you look at Helium and you say like, they only have 300,000 stations, like they're fucking 300,000 nodes. Come on. Sure, they sold, the Helium ecosystem sold, I think it was almost 1 million hotspots were onboarded, so just under 1 million. Hotspots were onboarded at the peak of it. The most that were ever on active at one time was just somewhere around 600,000, maybe 650,000. And now it's down, the last time I checked, which is 3 weeks ago, is at 300,000. I'm expecting it's probably going to go and sit between 200,000 and 300,000 over the long term. That's still, as far as I can tell, 3 times at 300,000 as big as the next biggest network. And that network is TTN, and is, I think, this is now going on memory, but I think when I was looking around, and it's a private company, so they don't have any obligation to publish a number of gateways they have, but it's around 100,000. So the supply side, they built a network that's 3 times bigger as far as numbers than the next biggest thing, and probably as big as the next 5 things combined. So chapter 1, supply side, DePIN, sorted, right? You can definitely do that. You can incentivize it with tokens. People be excited about it. People like me, like you watching, be excited about it and build it. Chapter 2 is probably going to be more on demand. And if we think about it, it's not like these things are like separate book chapters and perfectly clean. There's going to have to be some significant improvements in community organization and community management on these things, especially as they grow. And that's what I'm seeing in the best projects is during this bear market, it's been all about building and saying, okay, look, we know that the next bull market is going to come. It's never not happened in human history, right? If we get hit by asteroid, none of this shit matters anyway. But we know the next thing's going to come. What are we going to do to prepare for it now? And the best projects are looking at the community side and saying, okay, how do we? I mean, this is one of the things we're looking at. How do we look at those pieces and make sure that we're ready when the bull run comes to get the maximum value out of that bull run? Because we all know that the bull run is going to be batshit crazy. It's going to be super frothy. It's going to be insane overvalue. And if you're a DePIN project, you want to use that mega power, that mega energy to grow your project as big as possible so that you get to the network effects that you want. So that's what I'm thinking is going to happen. So it's going to be like this, maybe chapter 2, A and B is going to be, you've got to find the demand side that is a requirement. CF, I'll hit your question in a second. And then B is going to be, you got to be organized and make it super clean. And I think that's a challenge for all of these different projects is most of the projects are on Discord, is where they manage their community. There's a website to provide documentation, and then there may be Twitter for marketing and maybe YouTube for marketing, maybe other stuff. Maybe they have internal mechanisms. Is how do you tie all of those things together? And so this becomes much more of like a Web 2 business operation. Is how do you run operations and logistics for a decentralized network? Okay. CF, I saw your video about bringing off-grid 1 and off-grid 2 down from the mountain. Is there anything specific you can share about the overhaul that you might be planning for them? Yeah, so the big thing with those two is that they kept going offline, and I think it's something to do with the RUT 240 that is in both of them. Both of them are DIYs. Both of them are running on Pi Zeros. And I was seeing that the data usage on both of them was going way up, and I couldn't understand it. And then I also couldn't really troubleshoot it because it would go offline and come back online, go offline, come online. And it would always, inconveniently be offline when I wanted to go and troubleshoot it, and then I'd see it pop up. So I wanted to bring both of them back, pull them off that mountain. The coverage that is there, that area is now pretty well covered with other stations. So it's not like having those stations up is critical. So I was like, all right, I'll go and pull those things off. And then it ended up being this epic, physically very challenging session to pull both of those off because I got up there, realized I'd forgotten some of the tools to break down the various pieces. I mean, it's like silly stuff, like a couple crescent wrenches to pull the boxes off. And so instead of being able to fold everything up and put it in my backpack, I ended up carrying the two things down the mountain. It was just this fucking mega quest to get off of the mountain. Super difficult, but fun. So the overhaul piece that I'm going to do is going through, pull them apart, just make sure all like the connections look good. I saw already that there's just some like corrosion on the stuff from being outside for so long. I would like to load up on both of them some solar monitoring stuff. So some of it is just like things that I was thinking about during the craziness of helium that I never got around to, or I got around to on one unit, but I didn't get around to on the other. And then I think there's some other stuff that I want to see on these where I want to investigate building a multi-miner off-grid. And say, okay, if if I've already got connectivity on there, what else can I put on there? Could I put this wing bits on there? And in wing bits, I don't think you can, because I think they think they use about 40 gigs a month, which is about $30 is the cheapest I've seen. You can get that on a SIM card. And that seems to be too much, but maybe not. So just kind of an interesting thing. And I thought it'd be super fun to, one of the cool things early in helium was to have an off-grid where you opened up the door. And for me, like everything inside was the very first one. It was like a, rat's nest of crazy cables and a shit show. And by the last one that I did, it was this really clean and neat stuff with 3D printed holders in there, 3D printed mounts in there. So you kind of snapped everything in. It was really straightforward. So I want to see if I can do that same thing for the multi-miner side, and then build in some extra monitoring for it. And then I think and this is backed by almost nothing. I think we're going to see another DePIN come out in the near future that is going to have be advantaged by having an off-grid placement, and so I just want those things ready to deploy. So I'll probably put one of them back up on that mountain. It's a cool little place to visit. It's a really steep slope to get up. It's very infrequently visited. I was actually thinking that those things were both going to get vandalized and be smashed. And at one point when they were both offline, I was like, oh, someone went up and stole them. But when I went up to check them, I didn't see any signs of any kind of, messing at all. And with one of them in particular, if you found it, it's because you were looking really hard for it. I was congratulating myself when I found it. I was like, fucking A, I did a good job with putting this one in a place that had both a great view and also was really difficult to stumble upon. So that's the overall stuff. And, I've learned a lot in the last time I deployed an off-grid or built an off-grid. It's now November 2023. So it's probably 2021 was the last time I put one out. Maybe I was putting them out in 2022. But yeah, it was the last time I kind of built and deployed one. So it was just fun to get back in and do that stuff again. Yeah, that's the intent there. So let's see. The other thing I saw that was kind of cool this week is, and I think, so here's, I'll drop this in the comments as well, is this company Saildrone. So these guys, as far as I know, are not considering, let me make that a little smaller. They're not considering at all doing a DePIN, but it's the kind of thing where I see a lot of these DePINs that want some kind of wireless coverage, some kind of radio coverage, need to cover the oceans. And so you start thinking, okay, well, how do you cover the oceans reliably? I don't think it's practical to put a buoy down all throughout the oceans. So it's more practical, and I think this is what is probably coming down the pipe, is that a company like this, Saildrone, so what they make is an unmanned, must be like ocean vehicle. I don't know what the acronym is. Super cool thing. Looks like it's got a sail. Looks like it's got a little prop on it, some solar panels. Maybe it's just a sail. And the thing zips around unmanned and collects whatever data you want to put on it, whatever kind of data collecting package you want to put on it. So they have a pretty cool, if you go to their website, they've got a pretty cool little case study of where they were collecting information on the echolocation of bats off the coast of the Farallones. Farallon Islands are up, I want to say they're up north off of San Francisco. I'm going to get pinged on that if my geography is wrong. But, they're really difficult to get to. It's pretty sharky water out there. It's a pain in the ass. So if you can have some unmanned thing just zipping around and collecting data on whatever it is, whether it's bat echolocation, whether it's radio signals, whether it's ADSB, whether it's, helium stuff, any of those things, that starts to get pretty interesting. And especially if that thing can transmit from anywhere, which the Saildrone can. What does it look like if those guys want to start a DePIN and they say, hey, you can buy a Saildrone and deploy it. So I'd buy one, get it delivered to the shop, unpack it, go down to the ocean, huck it in the ocean, and then that is the Gristle King Saildrone, and it provides coverage wherever it gets set. Now, I don't think that particular idea right now is super practical. I want to say when I looked, those things were not cheap. In fact, I don't remember the price, but I'm guessing it's like no less than $5,000, and maybe like it's $100,000 for those things. So on the mining side, one of the things that certainly Max and I have seen is that, or Max has made the point about, is you want the miners to be cheap enough that kind of everyone can participate, or most people can participate. If it's a $5,000 device, a lot less people, or 10,000 or 100,000, way less people can participate. But I think what we may see in the next evolution in this kind of chapter 2 of DePIN, as we identify specific pieces of demand, or we see those requirement for demand, is we'll see stuff like this where it is more expensive. And maybe we'll see, group buys of these things. Maybe we'll see the things come down way down in price. Maybe we'll see some different ideas there. But all of a sudden, if you can open up and cover the oceans in some way that is approachable from this kind of crowdsourced or DePIN community method, that becomes super interesting as far as how much value you can deliver. Because one of the things that becomes pretty clear as you look around is that the oceans are kind of last frontier on Earth and are not really well understood, mapped, or monitored. So kind of cool thing there. Again, those guys have, as far as I know, no exposure to DePIN, no plans on doing DePIN. They're just a company that I found when I was looking for, I think I found them when I was looking for a boat to row across to the Channel Islands, and somehow stumbled across those guys and then started thinking, oh, cool, it'd be neat to put, a helium hotspot on there, and it'd be neat to put X, Y, and Z projects on there and see what happens. So kind of cool stuff. There. Okay, I think that's most of what I got. I'll be doing a massive overhaul to the, I know this is the DePIN state channel now, but I'll be doing a massive overhaul of the Gristle King site, so you'll see the Gristle King site change pretty significantly over the next week or so, maybe 2 or 3 weeks. I'll be posting a couple more blog posts over there on the projects that I'm finding. On the DePIN state side, I just interviewed the Silencio guys. I'll be working on getting that video out in the next day or two about their upcoming release. I think they've got a big announcement on November 9th that they're talking about, which is tomorrow. So, which is, a bunch of updates, all the rest of it. Good to check in with those guys. And then we've got the usual kind of DePIN state interviews coming down the pipe. If there's anyone that you want us to interview and get on DePIN state, let me know. Hit me up in Twitter, Discord, wherever it is that you want to find us, and do that. In the meantime, oh yeah, it looks like a kayak with a solar panel. Yeah, they're super cool, right? I'm just looking at the comments now. Yeah, in the meantime, if you have any questions or want to get in contact, I think it should be pretty easy to do that. Yeah, proof of prospect theory. Oh, from the app. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, that guy had reached out to me. He's like, hey, I think we had a conversation a while ago. He's like, I'm doing this thing. Can you help me get the word out? I was like, yeah, sure. I'll put it out here and see what happens. No guarantees on that. So most of what I'm doing right now is farting around with this antenna stuff for this ADSB. I made this cantenna last night. That was super fun just to make. It's good to be back in the workshop and fiddling around with hardware and antenna stuff. So, okay, cool. I think that wraps it for the day. I will see you guys, I think it's next week. We don't have another break in the show until the end of the month when Helium does their community call. But that should do it. Right on, guys. Rock and roll. I'm out.